I'm born in Eritrea, Asmara, and lived with my mom, my mother and my father, and I have a twin brother and a younger sister. We lived a normal upper...
When were you born?
In 1993. So I will be 26 in December.
Okay. And you were born in Asmara, but your dad, before that, your family lived in Sweden?
No,
you're just your dad.
My father.
And how long did he live in Sweden?
Since, I don't know if it was 86 or 87. So he came here during the war.
Yeah. Why did he leave Eritrea? Did he flee, or did he leave to get an education, or both?
Both, I think. And his brothers were already here. Most of them came in the beginning of the 80s or in the 70s.
And your father, what was his occupation?
Journalist, writer, poet.
And he already started writing at a very young age, I understand.
Yes. Actually, his own mother, my grandma, was a poet. So I think he got it from her. There was... I think there was a lot of books and writing when he grew up.
So he grew up in a sort of in a literary family, if you want to put it. As your mother, your grandmother, she was a poet and a writer. Was she published? Was she no? But just for her own private.
Exactly.
Okay.
So yeah, but on my mother's side, there's nothing like that.
What was the background of his family? They were. Your grandmother was a homemaker, or
she was a wife, and she took care of the children. And my grandfather was a businessman. He used to work for the Italians, and then when they left Eritrea, he bought the store, and he had a famous shop in the center of Asmara.
Which was what?
They sold like ham, cheese, pasta.
So it was a deli?
Yeah, a deli, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So your family at that time was what you would call comfortable?
Yeah, my father's family are upper middle class.
And how many siblings were there?
7.
7, so David has like 6 siblings?
Exactly.
Okay. And so your father's talent was pretty obvious very early. I remember his brother saying that he was writing all the time.
Yeah, he was writing all the time. And even in school, he expelled very much every year. So... You mean he excelled? Yeah.
He was a very good student.
Yeah, very good student.
I understand he published a short story or a play very early.
Yeah.
That became very well known.
Yeah, but it also became censored. So.
Immediately?
Yeah, he went when he tried to write it in school. They told him to take away some parts of it.
Who did it?
I think the headmaster maybe, but it was also, maybe it wasn't censorship, but it was also a very, as I understood it, a very conservative Italian private school.
And so what was the story about that he wrote?
He wrote about love, young love, and also the political scene in Asmara.
Do you happen to know what the reason for the censorship was? Was it too explicit? Was it politically sensitive?
I think maybe it was both. That it was politically sensitive, and it was maybe he gave too much of what the human nature is.
Interesting. And do you happen to know? I mean, he was able to continue to write at that time.
Yes, of course.
And then he also published a radio play, from what I understand, or a story that was very well that was known. And
I still haven't understand that because I haven't heard it. But
it's called the 30,000 or the
30,000, I think.
Do you happen to know what that is about?
No, actually not really. But it's about politics, I think. Yeah.
There's also a story about a greedy barber, but this was a different story, right? About a greedy barber who hides money in his barber chair, right? And then it becomes worthless with inflation.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting lesson.
He was always somehow criticizing humans and the human nature.
Your father was how would you describe him? I mean, he was a extrovert or an introvert? Was he an observer of human nature?
He was an introvert. He could be quiet for several hours and just listen, and to just observe, and we could actually, me and my brother could actually sit with him and do nothing.
So it was very easy to.
I thought so, but maybe because I'm his child. But I think other people thought so too.
So your earliest memory of your life together in Asmara was very comfortable, very pleasant?
Yeah, absolutely. It wasn't any problems. I think I was really privileged, and we had a good life, and we went to restaurants, and he played with us, and and he told us a lot of things. He could, if you ask him anything, and he would explain directly, and he would never scream or nothing. He would most of the time just explain.
He also apparently had or was involved in managing a children's circus.
Yeah.
So he was very, very interested in children. But what was the purpose of this circus, and what was it like? Do you have any memory of it?
Yeah, because he took me and my brother to go over there, and with these children was actually teenagers, and we could play with them. And I think the purpose was to engage young people to be creative and to do their own things, and he believed in them, I think.
So you felt very compelled in terms of passing on values through this kind of activity to children, to engage children, to teach children.
Exactly. And he wasn't alone, actually, because Joshua Johannes also did that, I think. So. Yeah.
So was this sort of a traveling group, or did you travel throughout Eritrea, or was it a stationary thing in Asmara? Or?
I don't actually know, but I think with Joshua or Johannes, I think they traveled, but I don't know to what extent they did that.
So as a child, what is your first memory where you felt maybe that something was not quite right? Do you have this kind of memory before you left? How old were you when your father was arrested?
So no, I was gonna turn 8.
So you were still very young. Do you have just any memory of this time or not?
Yeah, I have memories. Yeah, I do. It was. Do you mean when he got arrested, or during that time, or
yeah, this time, did you as a child ever have this sense that somehow things were changing? Like, no. This was all kept away from the children, basically.
Yeah, I not kept away, but we were. I don't think my parents. They wouldn't talk to us about
No, I understand. I mean, you were much too young, but it's just the idea that you...
But I don't think it was trying to hide something. It was more like we were living our normal life.
That you did not expect to be arrested.
Yeah. I don't think they expected this to happen.
Yeah, this, I think, is also what Berger said, that he was trying to warn your father because he was himself going underground.
Yeah.
And that your father felt he was going to be all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, have you ever spoken to your mother about this period? How she perceived this time?
Yeah, she tells me that he told her like, oh, I don't think anything will happen. I think I'll just, maybe they will ask me something, but that's about it. So of course, and she trusted him.
So when he was arrested and did not come back, this must have been a very big...
Yeah.
This must have been a trauma for the whole family.
Yeah, she was in shock, I think. Because she didn't know anything, and we didn't know anything.
And you didn't hear anything from him in the first few years?
No, we did. Yeah, the first year we could actually visit him. And then we went to Sweden. Because...
Did your father... influence this decision that you should return to Sweden, you think? Or was this your mother's decision?
Yeah, I think so. They were both. I think they were both thinking about this over and over and over again. Because they and that's very typical for my parents. They always, you have to, they always, if they were going to take a decision, I remember when they were going to buy the house and they had to rethink what's good, what's bad, what's good about this and that. So I think they did that for maybe several months actually.
So they had a real partnership.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So then you started life in Sweden, and your father was in prison in Eritrea. And as a child growing up, how did you? This must have added some. You must have realized that this was not normal.
Yeah.
In terms of other children or other young people your age, and how did this influence your relationship with your mother, with your father? Were you angry? Were you upset? Were you?
Of course, I was angry because my father was actually a good father, and sometimes I feel. Yeah, I felt very sad sometimes when my friends had their fathers, and some of them may had a bad father, and somehow I could wish they could meet my father because he was wonderful in that sense, because he was encouraging us to be who we are, and that was always his thing, be who you are, but be kind and observe your society and where you live, and instead of because in the early stages I had some problems in school with making friends, and he was always telling me it's not your fault, and
he talked to you about
this? And he actually asked me oh, what do you think the problem is? Do you think we can solve this together? And he would talk to the teachers, and somehow by his encouragement I actually got friends, and I don't know how I did it, but I tried to meet other children and try to approach them, and that's still with me, that I should engage with different kinds of people all the time.
That's what you said yesterday. It struck me that the one thing that really, I think that resonated very much with you, that he said to engage.
Yeah.
And engage also with people who do not think like you.
Yeah.
anybody. So he was entirely free of prejudice. And was this sort of the thing that, your grandparents, they were free-thinking, they were liberal, they were all... they had a fairly liberal mindset.
Absolutely. My grandma always told them that don't fight about religion or politics. You can talk about it, but you don't need to fight. But I think what I brought to this was, for example, when I went to last year of high school, I actually interviewed a person who is in the Swedish Parliament, the party is in the Swedish Parliament, and it's kind of a racist party, but they're still in the Parliament. So I called them and I interviewed them, and actually one of my friends were like, "Why are you doing this? They hate you." And I was like, "Yeah, so what? I will do that anyway." And actually my mom encouraged me. She was like, maybe it's not that bad, you have to see what he says. So you have to get his views as well. So, and that is also from my father. He would have encouraged me. So this thing that you have to talk to everyone is like, I think it's good.
Well, that's really then the legacy also. That is a very, very much what you feel is that he had this open mind, that he was trying to, as you say, engage.
Yeah.
That you engage also people who do not share your views. But you went further yesterday, I think, even that you said you do not hate anybody.
No.
And I found that very interesting. So when you're growing up, this is now, you have a more mature view and also more, you have some perspective as you grow up. But as a child, were you were not angry at your father, not angry at your mother?
I was angry, but as I grew older, I was asking myself, would I have done the same thing? Maybe, maybe not. Because when you feel strongly about something, then I can understand that, why you would take that decision to actually go to Eritrea. But at the same time, he actually didn't know. We didn't know anything. We just knew it was a bit tense.
When your father lived in Sweden, what motivated him to go back to Eritrea?
Well, Sweden, until now, I would say, is not an inclusive society. Actually, it's kind of, there are structural and systematic racism, even though they will admit it or not. It's there.
So he felt like he
didn't belong here.
It didn't.
Yeah, and I understand actually, and he didn't want us to be his children to feel the same way. That's why we stayed in Eritrea as well too.
So this is so he returned because he felt that this was his home, and also because he felt that this country was not as welcoming or as inclusive as it should be, and didn't want you to grow up this way. But did he also feel that he wanted to contribute to the development of Eritrea?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a huge part of it, of course. And he also told us, like, you are the future, the generation that will keep on the Eritrean legacy. So he also wants us to be there. And
so this was also this inner motivation and this drive, I think, beyond him. And so when he then became a journalist, he was always a writer, so he was a playwright, but then he decided to buy a newspaper, or to become partner in a newspaper, co-owner of a newspaper. And what was the outlook of this newspaper? Was this progressive? Was it?
Well, I've heard that he was engaged in taking the hardest decisions. Are we going to publish this? Because I think they wrote about a water problem in a village, and it was a very sensitive, what do you call it? Subject, yeah. They published it, and after that, I think they got a lot of letters where they were saying like thank you, but at the same time, I think they also got everything else that wasn't good. So
this was sensitive because it would show that there were certain problems in Eritrea.
Exactly.
This was in some way,
and they were
criticism.
Exactly, and also because they were also telling personal stories of people, and maybe that was some kind of new journalism in Eritrea.
So he was really, he really felt that he had an important role to play in terms of, taking part in the building of Eritrea and building a new society.
Exactly, building on new institutions and society and schools, hospitals, everything. And being a journalist is a part of it, I think.
And did he know the current president personally? Was he, or because my understanding is that that the two of knew each other, that that he had been part of sort of the same struggle, or is this a different generation? I think it's
the president is
a little older.
Older,
right? Yeah. But did they? I think they did meet because I think that they are.
Yeah, they have met.
Yeah. So, as you were growing up and you're thrust in this situation, your father is a political prisoner, how did you feel that you were going to deal with this? How has this changed over the years? Did you first say, I don't want anything to do with this, or did you always embrace it, or did you say, how did you feel about it?
Well, the first years when I was a teenager, that was when I was, I think, not angry, but frustrated and disappointed. And then when I got, in the later years of my teenage years, I got angry. And then now, in my mid-20s, I'm not angry, I'm not disappointed, I'm not frustrated. I just want my father back. That's about it.
But you're fighting, you keep fighting.
Yeah, for his freedom.
So what sustains you in this fight? Where do you find the strength?
I think, first of all, in myself, but also in other Eritreans. And my father, and those who have died there, and those who are still in prison with him. And the Eritrean people, because we are fighters in heart and in spirit, I think.
Did you ever, was there a time where you say, this is something I don't want to pursue anymore?
No.
I cannot do it.
No, never. Because for me, it's not something I can choose. For others, maybe it is, but for me, it's almost like an obligation.
But in your family, you are the person who is sort of carrying this fight to the outside world. Your siblings are the same age and younger. How has that affected their lives and your relationship with your siblings?
I think they handle it very different than me. Also because my brother is maybe much like my father, an introvert who maybe he doesn't like to be seen. But we have our discussions, and I know they support me. And my younger sister, since she is 6 years younger, she's trying to catch up of what I am doing, and she tries to learn But I think it's really hard, also for my mother. It's really hard.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about your mother, and that's a very personal thing. You can tell me if that's too personal, but it's also, even with you, because you feel like you're living your life, your own life, but there was this dimension added to your life that you had really no choice about, and that you had to either reject or embrace. And it's also open-ended in a way, because you don't know what will happen next week, next month, next year. How do you live with that? How do you approach this?
I try to do things that I enjoy doing, like reading books, go out eating with friends, and being with my family, and being out in nature, so that I have some sense. I live a kind of normal 25-year-old life, I think. So I really have good support from my friends and family as well. They are always there, no matter what.
So your friends also,
they know about this. So.
They know about this and they live with this.
Yeah.
And they assist you. You find support.
Yeah, even though they always say, we're sorry we cannot do that much. But I'm just thankful that they are just there.
Just being there and having this support. And for your mother, it must be very difficult, because this is like, she's like a widow, but an open-ended, there's an enormous uncertainty. You know, she's a widow in the sense that she's abandoned.
Yeah.
You know, that she does not know what will happen. So it's almost like her life also very much was cut short in the middle.
Yeah, and she misses him a lot, and she's still waiting for him, and she always talk about their partnership and their relationship. And
how young were your parents when they met?
My mother was 19, and my father was 28, so he's 10 years older than her.
So she met him at a very young age, and that, of course...
and she actually remembers when first time she saw him, she was maybe 7, and he was 14 or something, and she was going to the shop with her sister. And
so this was, very much a love match, so to speak.
Yeah, somehow it was, I think, but I don't... somehow maybe. I don't know.
It sounds very much like it. If there's all this deep emotion still after all this time, it's an indication that this was... Well, how do you feel that you want to move on, that you can move on, and how do you approach this uncertainty about your father?
I don't really think about that much. I just go day by day, and I always think tomorrow he will be free.
You said that you did not hate the members of the regime. How did you arrive at this very mature feeling?
Well, I think it's not my place to hate, because I'm just actually somehow I actually have tried to understand them, even though it's very hard. But I don't have that energy anymore.
So you never had the feeling that you wanted to destroy the regime, that you wanted to harm the people who harmed your father. You felt that you wanted to bring change through means that are not violent. You want democratic change from the outside.
And that's exactly that why we shouldn't act the same way, because it doesn't actually work. I think we have to talk and be in dialogue, no matter what we think of each other.
So are you actively seeking dialogue with?
Of course.
With
because I actually want to understand, genuinely understand, and I genuinely want to talk.
You want to understand your father's jailers, the members of the regime?
Of course.
Do you speak to people here in Sweden who are in favor of the regime?
No, but I have done that, and I have done that, and I don't think it wasn't no difference talking to them or someone else. They have their thoughts and I have mine.
So how optimistic are you?
Very. I think this will hopefully get a really, really good solution that suits everyone.
What makes you so optimistic?
Because I believe my father is alive, and I believe that we can make a positive change in Eritrea.
And you feel that there is some momentum now? You feel that you have a sense that something is happening?
Well, hopefully it will happen, but I'm very careful because I don't want to get my hopes up too high either. But I hope we can find a solution.
Yeah, I was just wondering, in terms of this movement of social media, and there's much more awareness now about the situation in Eritrea, but that you feel somehow, I was wondering if you have this sense that something is shifting, that there's more attention, that people are getting more active, that people
people are getting more active, and I think that it's good that people speak out and speak up about that matter, about the matter of Eritrea, because it belongs to all of us equally, and that we have to remember that.
Is there anything that inspires you, that gives you strength, that has sort of affected you along the way, that somehow helps you in this continuing fight for your father? Any literature, any music, any people?
Well, I get inspired, I think, by my grandma, my mother's mother. She's still alive, and she has this sense of believing in people's good heart, and she inspires me a lot. And I also love Toni Morrison, the writer. She inspires me a lot too, because she writes about this unbelievable force that Black people have and Africans have. Like in our, it's in our DNA, and this is not something new. That Eritrea is in this situation is not new. But it's unfortunate that we are the 5th generation still fighting.
So you feel it's like an innate force, an internal force that goes beyond the issue of Eritrea, but it's part of the history of Africa and of
exactly.
Your identity.
Exactly, and I think also many Africans are tired of fighting this kind of stuff, because we just want to be free. We want to live normal lives, go to normal jobs, have normal fights, just be. But somewhere I see the light. I'm really hopeful that that Eritreans themselves can do this. Of course, with the help from the international scene, but I think we as Eritreans also have to talk to each other, and others have to talk to us and not about us, and ask us what can we do instead of now we're doing this, but ask us first.
So change in a way that there's also this force that will act on its own, because you feel there's an internal dynamic at work.
I think so, yeah. Within Eritreans.
Within Eritrea, yes, and within the society, but also as part of the history, as you said, it's in the DNA.
Yeah.
And then from the outside forces, the social media and the international community. You still have family in Eritrea?
Yeah, I do.
How do you balance that? I mean, with your activism, do you worry? Do you censor yourself in your head when you say things?
Actually, to be honest, I don't call them very often. But when I do, we don't even talk about that. We talk about like, oh, how is it there? How is my grandma love cats, and she still have her cats there. We talk about the cats. So we try to talk about normal stuff, because it's also important to remember that we are not just like, I'm not just doing this, I also have a life.
You're not just Dawit Isaak's daughter.
Yeah, I'm also
an advocate.
Yeah. So I try to do a lot of other stuff, because that's also, my mother always encouraged me to do other stuff. That she always say, oh, you should go out and dance, or take a drink with a friend, or if I'm a little bit down. So she's always encouraging in that sense.
So what are you doing now? What was your professional life now? What is your
now
path?
I work to try to engage in the Eritrean diaspora, try to meet different kind of people, to see what we can do together, how we can help our fellow Eritreans, and also how we can engage and be more active in the society that we live in. So I do that together with my co-worker that I have. So we travel, and we also try to meet politicians and other people that can help, or we can get advice from. So we try to.
So you are an activist, an advocate for.
Yeah.
So it does take a hold of you.
Yeah, of course.
So this is doing something else, but still you feel compelled.
Of course, and I'm also like now I've written a book that will be released in March. So I look forward to that.
And what is the book about?
It's about my life growing up without a father in Sweden, how that has affected me. It's about class, it's about racism, it's about love, it's about, it follows me from the time that I was 4 until I'm 22, 21, something.
Did your father ever address this issue of racism? But you were very young when he was arrested, so this was not something. But this was not something that he ever sort of talked about. That
no, he did not.
Because you were living in Eritrea at the time, so that was not.
No, that was not a thing that he talked about. But he always talked about the good stuff. I think he wanted to see. I don't think he wanted to see the racism of Sweden that I know he met. But I think he always chose to go, oh, it's good, and I've been in several European countries, and I've always been, welcomed and felt welcome. So I think he rather wanted to see that side.
But he struck me always as a person who really emphasized the positive, and he wanted to bring about change by acting in a positive way.
Yeah, and I think so. I don't think maybe he would. I think because now we're talking about identity politics, and somehow because he's that kind, he's a core liberal in that way. So I think, I don't know what he would think about that. I think he would maybe think that now people are trying to divide people, we should be together, we should come together and have discussions instead of talking about us and them. And maybe that's, I don't know.
But he was, he had sort of a gentle voice.
Yeah.
From what I can tell from his articles,
Mm-hmm.
but there was definitely a very strong inner core.
Mm.
He seemed to me that he knew who he was and what he wanted.
Yeah.
And I think that comes through. So do you feel very much your father's daughter in that way?
Yeah, of course. I'm very secure of who I am in that sense. And that's thanks to my parents, I think. Always have your foot here.
So when you say you're not angry also with with the situation in Sweden, that where some people feel that something more could have been done, that the case of your father could have been pursued with greater energy. Do you feel that what are the reasons behind the fact that this was not the case? Do you feel that there is an element of racism? That if your father had been native-born Swede, that the situation might have been different?
Of course. Yeah, but he's Eritrean, so. And also he's a black man.
So he is not one of Sweden's
really.
own?
No, not really. I'm not either. And actually I don't want to be, because I'm in the core, I'm Eritrean, and I'm really proud. And I just happen to be an Eritrean living in Sweden. And actually I see this country as my second homeland. But a part of me says that I also have a homeland somewhere else.
So also there no anger, you are a realist.
Yeah, I'm a realist, because I don't try to be. I know maybe a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm Swedish," but they have different ethnicity. They may be from Iran or whatever, and I can understand why you can have that outlook, and maybe people see you as Swedish or you see yourself as Swedish, but I don't, because I know my history, I know who I am, and I can appreciate this, but I also appreciate where I come from, so I'm not ashamed.
But you feel like even though you grew up in this country, large part, you feel not Swedish. You feel first and foremost you feel Eritrean.
Yeah.
Your identity is Eritrean.
Yeah, I've always felt that. I've always felt I'm Eritrean, because it was not my choice to be here, and I don't have a choice to stay or live. I am here now, and of course I feel in that sense I can feel European.
So when you look at the situation, you feel that you can appreciate the positive of this country,
Of course.
and you can also rationalize the negative.
Yeah, of
But
course.
you feel that you can take it without too much emotion. You're not compelled to go out and protest.
No. Why? No, but at the same time, I don't know why people are like that, why they need to be racist, or why they have this inner feeling that they hate people from other countries because there are no need. But I think it would be greater if people actually realize that, oh, I'm from here and you're from here. What can we do together? And to like meet between cultures, traditions, religions, and ethnicities. That would be much better.
Is that what you're going to talk about in your book?
Yeah, of course I will do that to some extent.
What is it you want people to know about your father? What you think that they don't know or that they have not understood?
I think people have this kind of that he was very energetic, that he was doing this, doing that, but he was actually very quiet, very calm. He ate a lot of cheese. And he liked pork. You know, that's not very common in Eritrea to maybe eat pork, but their family did that. So that's very interesting that he was a human just like me and you.
Yeah, and that this maybe, that after all this time, people do not really know your father.
No, he's just maybe some symbol or
a symbol, yes.
But he was also a father and someone's husband, brother, someone who liked to play soccer, football. So.
At the same time, yesterday, and that's my last question, you said that you don't hate anyone, you want people to communicate, but you said do something. So you feel that there has to be more engagement, more determined action.
Exactly.
When I say that, not only from the government, but also from outsiders, from human rights organizations and NGOs. How do you want people to get engaged? What do you feel is missing?
I want people to try to understand Eritrea and the Eritrean government. I want us to have diplomatic ties. I want people to engage in somehow to make a relationship with the Eritrean government and Eritreans as well in the diaspora. So that's why I said before that we need to talk to each other as Eritreans, but other people have to start talking about us and talk to us, whether it's in Eritrea or here. So I always encourage people to go visit in Eritrea, see for yourself, what can we do? Can we talk about this, even though it's very difficult and people have been going through a lot of stuff, but can we talk about this stuff? And it's like that in every matter. Here in Sweden, I try to tell people, we have to talk about racism, but can we do that and can we meet somewhere here and talk about it? Because if we stay here and they stay there and we just, we're just shouting, but then they can't hear us and we can't hear them.
Then you would say that even engaging with a regime,
of course,
we
have to.
You feel that even any dialogue does not enable the regime or to continue, but that you feel that it's actually a way to somehow undermine it, to bring about its end.
I don't know about that, but I think if we have some kind of dialogue, usually people open up. Whether it's a regime or friends talking, we have to talk to them. We have to talk to people who have power.
So you feel that, in a way, this kind of talking is going to open a way to a resolution.
Yeah.
And so do you feel at the same time that those who argue that only pressure on the regime from the outside will somehow force a change? that they will only sort of respond to the same language to the same kind of action that they have. They oppress the civil society in Eritrea, and that dictators only understand one language.
But I don't believe in that. I believe that we can talk and dialogue. And I know some people think that it's very naive, but I don't think it is.
So you feel that that by speaking to the regime, by talking to them, by engaging with them, that they might change their own behavior, that you can bring about a behavioral change.
Hopefully. Yeah, hopefully. And I'm not gonna do that alone. Other Eritreans have to do that with me together, and also the international community has to engage in the same way.
So how are you trying to do this? I mean, in real terms now, in your life, with your book, do you have workshops with, or do you try to engage with Eritreans?
I travel a lot to meet other Eritreans, and I travel to actually meet politicians and try to talk with them about you have to go with dialogue, because sanction hasn't worked. Anything else hasn't worked. So we have to try what we've never tried before.
And what do you answer to critics who say that you're enabling this regime?
Okay, so tell me if you can do a better job then. Just call me, contact me.
Talk.
Yeah, because I think people also say that out of anger, but I should be the most angry. I haven't seen my father in 18 years.
Yeah.
But also I try also to carry his spirit.
You feel your father would have this attitude?
I think so. I think so.